morning, everyone. Welcome to this web panel discussion from Banking Frontiers. Our theme today is From Security to Trust. And given the kind of scenario we are in today, clearly security itself is not enough. We need an ecosystem which we can trust so that all kinds of citizens, all kinds of organizations can interact, trade, do business with each other, share information with each other, collaborate with each other without having to fear whether things are going to work out, whether data is going to get leaked, whether they're going to get compromised, whether their privacy will get invaded, whether any rules will be broken. So given all these challenges, we need to move from security towards trust. And that is the theme of our discussion. We have three panelists from the financial sector. Among them, Mathan Babu from NPCI is already with us. And we're expecting Biju from Federal Bank. So we're going to have this discussion from the journey from security to trust, and also including elements of risk, which is as equal and important in this journey. So I have prepared a set of some 7-8 questions. I'm going to put it up to our panelists, and let's hear from them. And towards the end, we will summarize and take away some lessons from this entire discussion. So it's not very common to have a discussion on trust kind of issues. There are n number of discussions on security that we have seen. And I've been a part of many such discussions. And there are definitely many interesting things to discuss in security. But in today's scenario, the need is to rise one level above security towards risk and trust. And that's going to be the focus of our discussion today. So welcome, Mathan, welcome, Elaine. And I look forward to other two panelists joining very soon. So let's start with Mathan, I guess. Mathan, whenever there is a crisis, the first thing that kind of shakes is trust. People really don't know how much they can trust a system, how much they can trust business partners. Everything is a little shaken. So, for example, when this happened, people quickly withdrew money from their bank accounts to keep as cash because people weren't sure what all will work, what all will not work during this time. So, as a CISO, what is your observation during the lockdown, during this corona crisis, in terms of how people are looking at if there is any change in the way people, in the way customers look at security, look at risk, look at trust during this lockdown period, during this COVID crisis period, compared to the regular times that were earlier, compared to the smooth times that we had earlier before this crisis. Have you observed any kind of changes among customers?
I think as a provider today, a payment services provider today, in the initial few days of the digital transactions saw a dip overall between the March, April to the May timeframe. But we didn't see, when I say that it is a dip, largely we also monitor the ATM transactions, right? So essentially, while you stated so possibly consumers would have withdrawn cash out, that is not what the data is showing. Largely, there was a net dip in the entire involvement of the digital transactions, including ATM, which were cash disposals that has happened, were completely dipped through between the April-May timeframe. June, we saw a steady increase that has happened, and we are almost back to the normal what used to happen in the overall volumes of digital transaction. In fact, there are two waves that would have driven the digital transaction. One, a larger chunk of the payments that government made in terms of the DBT into consumers' account also happened. So that actually saw a huge amount of increase in the Aadhaar-based transactions that would happen into consumers. There we saw an increase. which essentially people have not walked into ideally ATMs to withdraw cash, but rather leveraging consumers receiving cash at their doorsteps using payment channels, the micro ATMs and the POS channels to take out. That we saw some amount of increase. The other areas are including the digital channels. In fact, there is a tremendous amount of trust today in customer rather than handling cash. As compared to cash, they feel better. Given the COVID situation, there is a limited number of touch points. Cash being exchanged, people are really bothered as to who else would have touched the same money and it is coming into them. So people have largely started using the digital payment channels in lieu of cash is the trend that we have started seeing in the month of June. And I think the scale is already going up the ladder. We are above the March timeframe that we were in. So that should steadily increase further. So I see tremendous amount of trust from a consumer side people are having in the digital payment ecosystem to leverage that, especially in the COVID-19 situation that we are in. On
Okay.
the side, as a corporate, when we are to look at how do we trust ecosystem partners and players like that, there, as CISO, typically security and trust don't go together hand in hand. Uh,
Okay.
right? Typically, that has been the securing a corporate is essentially meaning that you would essentially have to see everything as a non-trustworthy one, zero trust and things like that that are being spoken of.
Okay.
So my thought process and how we have handled it is because there is amount of trust that we have to levy in terms of our employees connecting to our corporate network, partners connecting to our corporate network, people who can't come to office still work from home. The need is to trust, which typically don't go hand in hand with security. So we started with this new phenomenon called trust but verify. Yeah, we trust,
Okay.
but at periodic occasion, we will have the ability. We have acquired skills and tools to periodically check, assess systems, users' behaviors, and so on and so forth. So we do trust, but verify on a periodic manner to re-establish the trust is valid. So if there is a breach of trust, then we revoke. So that's how
Okay.
corporate and as a consumer that we are handling this case currently.
Okay. That's great, Matan. It's good to see that the trust has risen quickly into the system and the system is delivering what it was designed to deliver in the first place. So that's a good positive. Ellen, could you comment on your perspective globally? Perhaps you're looking at this in multiple regions around the world. How has security been impacted and how has trust been impacted? Is there a common trend throughout the world or different trends in different parts of the world?
There is definitely a change that has happened recently in the light of the COVID-19, because the job of a security officer is always to balance trust with security. And the evolution is coming because in the recent past, let's say 5 years ago, trust was a little bit of binary. Either you could enter or you couldn't.
Okay.
You would trust a device or you would not trust a device. Now we have a new machine learning algorithm in cybersecurity, in advanced cybersecurity, that yes, we recognize Mr. Manoj, but the way he uses his device is slightly different from the way he normally uses. And this algorithm enables to have an earned trust. So instead of having a trust where you cannot enter, means no business, no communication, no IT, or when you enter, you are fully authorized to go everywhere and do everything, there is a trust that depends on the behavior of the person, the device, the application, the stream. And that is a dynamical trust, is a trust related to the situation. So for example, you go, the great example that was given by Mathan was about a credit card. It's okay to give you access to your money, but all of a sudden, if you are connecting to a cash machine hundreds of miles away, at a certain bizarre time, then the system would say, oh, it doesn't quite look like the way Manoj uses his credit card. So we see that evolution recently.
Yes, that's interesting. Now, so this is, but if you look at the macro, so you've explained it beautifully, how trust is evolving and it's dynamic through all the use of machine learning technologies. But given the crisis that COVID has created, from the customer's perspective, so this was your bank's perspective, but from the customer's perspective, have there been any trends in terms of trust in cash versus trust in digital ecosystems?
I say that the idea of trust from the user is also evolving. And the users understand that there is a certain number of constraints that come from this dynamic allocation of trust, right? For instance,
Okay.
you can go to your office at business time. It's a bit weird if you go to your office completely outside business time, right? So, and people understand because of the incidents that we see around the world that sometimes trust has to be like regulated. And it's a little bit of a moving credit of trust. And the users start to understand that because they understand it protects themselves as well.
Okay.
And I would perhaps add, if I may, that the role of the CISOs is to educate and to explain why there would be differences in the granted trust. Because if you understand it for the greater good, if you deploy a proper communication to the end user, then the end user accepts the differences of trust.
Got it. Understood. Let's take the same conversation from the customer perspective to the employee perspective. Because even for the employees, there has been a huge sudden change. Most of the employees in most of the bigger cities are now working from home, right? And they're connecting to office using an office device, and in many cases, using a home device, which will be a laptop, a tablet, a phone, which is may or may not be registered with the office network. So, given the fact, and many of these devices could be used by multiple people at home in the family, it is not a dedicated device as it is in the office scenario. So, Matan, when you look at employees' perspective at NPCI, are many of them working from home today, or they still coming to office? How's the scenario?
So we are averaging about 25-30% of our employees have started coming to our offices to operate. But the larger chunk, which is close to 70% or slightly more than the 70, still continue to operate from home and deliver the services. Now, it's very critical on going back to drawing board to design how do we permit, what do we permit to our employees, right? So incidentally, when we had the situation just prior to India lockdown was announced, we were lucky enough to put our BCP to test about a week back. So it was just incidental enough. We didn't manage to pick and choose to start office at in a staggered, planned manner way too well over a week-long period, and we are not way too diverse from a location present standpoint. We have minimal number of locations where we operate from, and crucial data centers that we run from. So we piloted our business continuity just incidentally a week prior to the exact lockdown happened. And it was as same as situation involving a lockdown. So we had a tremendous amount of learnings from what would work, what would not work. should there be a lockdown. The first and foremost learning that we had is systems, IT systems typically don't fail.
Okay.
Typically don't fail on a normal day. Systems fail provided you introduce some changes into some of these systems. So as and when, and normally a change is a constant thing that we continue to perform, net new features getting added and so on and so forth. So from the learning that we understood that the first week of operation we will run typically in a manner that we will perform bare minimum forcible regulatory changes alone, but not anything else that will be needed for us to operate. Right. So that in itself, and some of the IT systems can fail on their own. Hard disk overheating, systems
Okay.
failing, that can potentially happen. So we will address the problem in hand as and when such situation arise only by moving task force in office or so. So no changes. If at all there is a breakdown, there is a quick emergency break fix that will be organized for it. So we had a 15-day overlay period for us to learn from them, because we have to introduce the situation of permitting various other changes happening from work from home to deliver inside office. So a lot of learnings happened around that. Enabling such connectivity. So first and foremost was to establish a network connectivity for employees to connect to us. When I say us, they still have to have a path to reach to the systems that they are supposed to reach and function through.
Yes.
These potentially could be sensitive, very critical, mission critical systems for us to run through. So evaluate. So we did on a step-by-step staggered manner, not boiling all overnight, to say enable all employees to work from home on day zero, right? So potentially the crucial functions that were to there, which is essentially operations and monitoring, all the monitoring.
Okay.
Monitoring, security monitoring, critical functions that has to run operations, back offices, and monitoring were given the priority to make it up and running. The net new developments were given the laggard treatment over the first 1 month, fag end of the first 1 month period of the lockdown, to evaluate how do we enable them. And largest chunk technologies were already there in place, which allowed such changes to happen through.
Okay.
Whether it is VDI, whether it is, and so on and so forth, were operational already in various forms and factors at our premise. So we did so like you rightly asked, if these are trusted systems belonging to our own corporate, we have a means, we have a path to allow them to connect. If these are not trusted system, employees' own system, we assess them at the gateway itself. And if they are not our own systems, we provide them a landing zone in a VDI or a standby zone from where, which is a trusted zone from where people land up accessing. So we stagger diversified ways and means to. So it's similar like what your pathways are provided today, right? So you use a FASTag, you are provided with a express channel. You are using a cache, you are given a channel. So we applied similar methodology, and network is core to it, right? So establishing connectivity. So we applied our principal methodology on trusting systems belonging to us, assessing systems belonging to us. Systems who do not belong to us, we have a method to assess, analyze, and provide them a differential treatment to permit them to connect to corporate network.
Ellen, I wanted to ask you, in terms of the example that Mathan Babu has given about setting up a secure zone, a landing zone for untested devices to come through, untested whatever, that kind of setup. Is that something that works very well? Is that like a standard approach, or there are other ways to deal with? For example, you gave the example of machine learning. Are there other alternatives to look at for a typical financial organization?
I was talking about this great idea that Mathan just described, to have a buffer of trust where you can actually enable connectivity, but you're still putting under control the device as from a behavior perspective. I think that's one of the great contribution of machine learning, is that you can see whether or not you can continue to trust a device from his own behavior. So that's one great thing. First idea, having a buffer zone is great.
Okay.
Second thing, we all find ourselves in a situation to deal with moving patterns as we have this new situation. Sometimes it was 95% of the employees of a corporation that were working from home. So then the good thing about this situation is that you have to consider the authorization, the authentication, and the prioritization of the applications in the light of what really matters for your business.
Right.
Then the CISO changes from just enabling connectivity to enable business and digital innovation. And that's a great evolution, because then you discuss with the other stakeholders at the C-level, and you understand what really matters for the business continuity to be ensured. And you ask the right questions and you get the right answers. And then you can tune the trust. You can tune the application prioritization. And that attitude will prevail after the crisis. The CISO will become the one towards which people turn to see if they can have this digital innovation, if they need to reconsider some of the ideas of business development, for instance, in the light of cybersecurity. So we have cybersecurity and strategy that are now converging.
Wow.
And they are thriving themselves on a virtuous circle.
Fantastic. I think that's a good explanation. Mathan, I wanted to ask you if there were a lot of calls coming from employees during this initial, let's say, 15, 20 days of work from home. And were they related to technical issues? Were they related to business issues? And how were they tackled, or how were they overall managed? Not at an individual level, but at an overall level. And also give us an idea, how many employees does NPCI have overall, just to give the context?
So we're not a way too people dense organization. We are roughly about slightly less than the 1,000 odd numbers with our own staff, and fairly decent amount of support staffs from outsourced agencies who also service us. So roughly all put together, roughly around the range of 1,400, 1,500 odd employees. So when we lost you in between, I was sharing our offices are also not way too spread across. We are largely in major 3 locations that we operate from. While we have thin staffs from the rest of the geographies, like in north some places, east some places, these are all largely remote office employees who operate for us. So the challenge largely were on the ability for employees to have the access requirement at their home rather than any other technical stuff. So majority of the employees, so this was also a financial year end when this was the lockdown was announced. So typically you will have non-tech savvy employees, like say for example finance, who typically are so used to operating only in office. And especially during office hours, people typically may or may not be so well versed with configuring Wi-Fi on their own systems, using a two-factor authentication and things like that, where the initial typical teething issues that we saw. So the focus was to ensure that closure of the financial year rightly happens. There is also vendor OEM partners who expects POs, orders, and things like that during the year-end closure. So to keep up the commitment, those were also crucial and important for us to deliver from a numbers standpoint. So those typically are most often non-tech folks. So the experience was to enable the non-tech folks to also use the technology that is put in play to them. Those were the ideal teething issue. But for the rest of the community that work at NPCI, which is largely tech team, are way too well versed. So enabling business operation, enabling monitoring, enabling, those are areas which were like cakewalk for us to ensure from today's perspective. Non-tech staff to enable them technically to qualify to connect. VPN is something that people would not have. In the typical non-tech people have tried and tested it out. Right? So those are areas we saw through. So beyond that, what challenge that typically any CISO would have faced is largely to build the context, right? So context of a device that people are connecting to, who he himself is, just not to trust the device. The device could possibly in the hands of anybody else at home as well. Majority of us were running while work from home. Schools were also being run from home. And there are shared workspaces. So especially in Mumbai like city, it possibly is both the partners obviously may be working, and if there is a systematic issue in one or the other partner system, it's quite obviously possible for the other partner at home to use either other partner's system also possibly, right? So to build the context and the behavior pattern of the user and the system was a major amount of analytics that were to be put to work for us to qualify, identify, and there again with trust, allowing them to still do what they are supposed to do, all came our way. So larger piece of them were largely technically addressable technology issues to be handled with. Not major business operation issues were faced. Like I told, as long as you don't do anything to the system, businesses will typically, as a provider for us, it will run on its own in the seamless manner, and consumers drive that. So we have seen increased consumer behavior now, like I mentioned in the first question itself. Consumer behavior now is on the upward trend, especially post unlocking of channels, the consumer goods channels opening up and things like that. We are seeing increasing trend in the digital usage.
Okay. So just to summarize, teething problems related to technology, but not to security. Can I summarize that way? For the people working at home.
So I have not touched the security aspect of it. The security aspect is a major nightmare because of two of the changes that happened while the COVID also happened, because of the geopolitical tension that got involved around the similar time. We could experience, majority of the Indian firms have experienced targeted attempts happening from geopolitical tensed nations around us. And given the work from home situation, larger chunks of attempts around phishing campaigns on employees, using some of corporate names to target the rest of the corporate. So the banking fraternity could be targeted, claiming themselves, claiming others, claiming themselves to be a regulator, government, or a NPCA staff potentially were also happening. So from the overall threat perspective, we saw, including the COVID situation, there were threat actors who were trying to use these chances they have, because today we are operating in a boundary-less environment. The corporates have vanished boundary. So erstwhile an employee's activity, we had the ability. So today the perimeter or defense of every employee is around the employee in itself or on the system that he is carrying. Erstwhile perimeter, like various technologies that we have put to operate to defend our corporate, has completely vanished today. So we were to beef up our ability to monitor the perimeter of the employee around him itself. Right. So a lot of functional technical works to beef up security definitely did happen. And many occasion, I can't claim that it was way too thoroughly planned through, because every day is a net new day and things were evolving as we speak. So there were major changes, major monitoring trends that were put to operate. This is every single day of learning for us. Right. So and it was not an easy path. It would not have been an easy path for any CISO or security professional in the industry. especially if we were in the geopolitical tension tied together with COVID-19 situation. Some of the economies which do not have come across the geopolitical tension in the current scheme of things possibly would not have experienced. But for India, it was completely different. If it were any other nation, possibly basis the current situation, not major nations are having geopolitical tensions now as we speak.
Right.
So operating for India was a major trend.
That's an interesting insight. So, Biju, you've been with us for 5-10 minutes. If I may just request you to share. Now, you are at Federal Bank. Now, Federal Bank is, yes, a major bank, popular bank in India, branches all over India, business all over India, with a concentration in the southern part of India. As a CISO, what kind of new issues did you face during the beginning period of the lockdown? And did those issues change after 1 or 2 months?
Yeah, so this
And I'm talking of both customer facing as well as employee facing.
yeah, sure. So this pandemic was one of the kind of situation none of us had faced in our lifetime. So though there were plans as part of the business continuity management, there were plans for tackling pandemics, but that was more of a theory. So the practical testing of that at this scale was the first time. So we were preparing for that since actually end of December itself. So that is when the signs of this pandemic spreading across the globe started. So
Okay, yeah, that's right.
yeah. So we have a business continuity management process, and we have a crisis management team also. So this is a team who is responsible for ensuring the continuity of the systems, minimizing disruptions, etc. So it was kind of continuous monitoring since December 2019. So initially it was like isolating the teams at different locations so as to ensure services without disruption. So that paid well also. We could succeed without any disruption. All the services we were able to ensure up and running. But going ahead, the situation changed across all over India, and in Kochi also the situation was changing a lot. So we had to change our tactics also. So initially, while we were focusing on working the teams from different locations, gradually we had to enable work from home or work from any location. So we actually adopted a strategy of flexi hours and flexi location. So that
Okay.
flexi location means for the employees, they could prefer to any location. It can be a different branch, it can be different office from than where he is posted. It can also be his home itself. So we enabled work from home capability also. So that was the next part, which then once work from home or work from anywhere was enabled, the secure enabling of the connectivity was a major task which we had to tackle with that. Yeah, like Madan mentioned in his earlier session. So, in addition to ensuring the normal activities, checking the normal traffic, so the geopolitical situation across the border also amplified the matter. So, we had to take care of all those things. The situation was actually changing. So, every day we were seeing one or other kind of new activity. Like one day, if you are seeing more connections like DDoS connections, uh,
Mm.
yeah, so on other day it will be more port scans. So the team had to be on alert on a 24/7 basis to detect any kind of suspicious activity, take corrective actions against that. So that was the kind of situation where, as far as cyber security was concerned. So
Okay.
regarding the branches or the offices, banking being an essential service, we have to ensure that the branches are up and running, people are available at the branches as per the directions or guidelines given by the Ministry of Health Affairs on a day-to-day basis. So at that time, the guidelines were on a day-to-day basis. Every day it was changing. So based on MHA guidelines, the SLBC was giving the guidelines for each day of the activity. So that everything we had to coordinate, we had to give the necessary guidelines to the field also. Then we had to ensure that the branches are also safe to work, both for the employees as well as the customers who are coming.
Yes.
So that was one major challenge So, but we could manage all those things. We ensured that now all our employees are provided with the necessary kits for ensuring their safety, keeping the
Okay.
social distancing,
Okay.
and also we have to instill confidence in the customers. So they should come to the branch for their at least for their critical activities. No? So that
Okay.
we had to chart out different activities, including ensuring additional security guards for managing the crowd wherever it was.
Okay.
And also, we were actually remotely monitoring the situation at the branches. We have a remote monitoring scheme wherein all branches are connected to the central hub, and we have a central team who can monitor what is
Oh,
happening in
okay.
each branch. And wherever any kind of additional help was needed, we could easily arrange through our regional heads or zonal heads like
Okay.
that.
So
Then we
what I
yeah,
want to understand is there are two threats. One, there are two problems for the information security system as such. One is the rising threats from the external world.
yeah,
Okay. Other is all the internal issues. Someone not having Wi-Fi connectivity, someone not having an patched PC, someone using his phone instead of his secure device, things like that.
yeah.
Which of these two kind of threats was the bigger threat? And were the solutions for both the threats similar, or did you have to come up with different kinds of solutions for different kinds of problems, security related?
Yes, that actually, without much issues, we could resolve. Actually, as I mentioned, we started in end of December 2019 itself for enabling work from home facility and all. So we were extending the facility to the people on a priority basis. So we have, as part of the business continuity management, we have prioritized the functions, which are the critical functions.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, we started enabling those for a work from home environment, and the team who should be available even if there is a disruption at the, for example, at the data center, who all should be able to connect the bank's network, whatever be the situation. So that those employees were identified initially, and we actually did testing of that. We started from tabletop exercises to actual drills of the work from home environment also. So multiple
Okay.
times we did that, and also we framed the basic guidelines, like as you rightly mentioned, having a good broadband connection is a must if we have to enable a VDA or a VPN.
Mm-hmm.
And ensuring that the employee, who the critical employee, has the bank's own device with the necessary endpoint controls in their device.
Okay.
All those things we were periodically testing, and we were actually doing the drills also. So that helped us to minimize issues, even when we had to, for example, the last week it's actually a lockdown in our near our data center, but we are able to ensure that all our activities, all our systems are up and running without any disruption.
Okay. That's interesting. Mathan and Biju, I wanted to touch upon another issue, which is coordination between the information security teams and the management, let's say. So, this is a time when management is making a lot of changes in the organization. Certain policies, certain procedures, certain priorities, whatever. What kind of interaction did you see happening with the management? In what way could security tell management, go ahead and do this, this, and this? In what way could security say, slow down on this, don't do this way, do it another way, or wait for this to happen and then then you initiate this change? So, what kind of guidance did you give to management so that the overall business could run smoothly and efficiently and not take too much risk or not take undue risk? Matan, can you
So,
start?
sure. So one of the core thing that came in as a need to activate during the COVID crisis, we felt was to enable active collaboration, which was not originally the case erstwhile earlier put to operation. So NPCI used to have a larger collaborative platform looking from an environment operating from office with regard to
Okay.
audio equipments, video callings, and so on and so forth. Everything tried, tested to be working perfectly fine while seated operated from office. So
Yeah.
the imminent need when we saw the work from home came up was to immediately activate a larger, wider, multi-manner collaborative platform for all our employees. So we were able to adopt that on a war footing manner immediately in the first few weeks of the lockdown itself.
Okay.
Collaboration includes multi-channel, right? So this is a corporate mail messaging, not to leverage only the mailing as a platform, because in a work from home situation, while at office at least it is presumed that employee is live on email, but while at home essentially chat possibly is a quicker response where he is reaching out on mobile, need not essentially be always a mail. Call out is possibly a quicker response rather than on mail. A video call could actually sync up between active decision making and so on and so forth. So especially in the management plan, the initial few weeks for us were crystal clear, no matter what, daily convening over a video call end of day to look at what went well, what did not go well, what should we communicate, and so on and so forth. We also strategically created champions who are tier 2 levels of manager by grade, and we stacked up pockets of employees to each of these champions for them to reach out to the each of the employees in. So like I told, 900 staff to touch upon 30 champions. Each champion carrying 30 is potentially a touch point. So HR and admin played a very, very crucial role to ensure communication was very, very actively on to the last mile of every single employee at NPCI. Possibly it was doable for us given the thin number of people that we had. I would not comment how would possibly a bank or a larger task force, how would have they handled it. I'm unsure about it, but it was doable for us. And we also sized up a weekly touch point in the initial few days to sort out issues including personal touch points. There could be issues at a personal level of an employee being in lockdown, not being able to come out. So whichever possible support as a corporate we could deliver to, not only pure play to make them operational to work from home to connect to office. I think we were very supportive to have a good management, to have extended some amount of great amount of seamless support to majority of our employees, all of our employees rather, together. So consciously it was taken as account, not to just enable them technically to function, but also to deliver their needs, daily needs, essentials, including, and these are situations where employees could potentially also fall sick while being at home, being tested positives, and so on and so forth. So in all channels, ensuring the coverage from an insurance standpoint. So we've done a fabulous amount of care to ensure that employees at NPCA do not suffer, both
That's
on
great.
the technology side as well as on the personal front that they have to.
Yeah, and you can say that these practices that Mathan described will prevail after the crisis, because under the pressure of continuing the business, the relationship between security operations and top managements has got closer. And that will remain. That is one of the positive effects of the management of the crisis.
In fact, it is very, very crucial if you look at the security aspects. So like Biju told, security is very, very collaborative in nature. So you would not see a SOC operating with one person, right? So SOC is an inclusive decision making, ideas shared, whiteboardings done. You would have a war room people will deliberate upon. Imagine that is taken away as because people not in office, and you have the specialist L3s of the SOC somewhere, right? And the operator who is seeing the tickets that are flowing into him operating from somewhere. The guy is clueless. If you were to render him to put him under a complete work from home, He is having no employee to peer to communicate. So collaboration was way too crucial to put to operate, especially for monitoring ops and so on and so forth. So so we learned that in the early part of the lockdown stage itself, and we were to take various decisions on what footing to enable them. So today, my SOC operates as same as a SOC which is operating at office, right? So it's a 24/7 continuous VC. People connect in as per their roster schedule, and they are in the VC as we speak. And inclusive decisions are taken. Various members are pulled in basis issues that are cited, and tech teams can participate, move out. So it's a complete war room setup on a seamless manner as it was to operate from office.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Biju, what kind of main discussions happen between the CISO team at security team at your bank and the senior management? What is it that bank wanted some risk or trust or security on, and what did security advise the bank what to do, what not to do, and how to do? Two, three main things, if you can touch upon.
Yeah, so in two ways, we are closely associated with the crisis management team. So regarding, because what are the network related new requirements, or what are the connectivity issues, all those things come up as part of the decision taken by the crisis management team to resolve the BCP issues. So for example, whether an employee device has to be provided connection for enabling some critical activity. So based on that, the security requirements will change. So basically, we have to look at what's the kind of work from home environment which have been enabled, what's the kind of platform which is enabled for the management as well as the employees to connect in time of crisis, because every meeting now happens in an electronic fashion.
Correct.
There are no physical meetings. So actually the management is closely involved in the day-to-day discussions, and even to the MD and CEO, we provide a daily update on what's happening, what's the situation today, and what's the preparation for tomorrow. The management is very keenly involved. Daily updates are given to the management, and we
Okay.
directions from the management also. So security is the topmost thing which everyone in the bank is concerned, including the directors.
Okay. If I may come to Elaine, what kind of queries are your bigger financial clients coming to you since this COVID crisis started?
I think
What kind of out-of-box thinking do they want from you?
well, the first out of the box thinking is that security has to be approached as a holistic reality. It's not a series of point solutions. I want to have the best antivirus, and then I need to secure my mail, and then I need a sandbox, and then I need a VPN access.
Right.
What's happening now is the platforms that enable to approach that as a whole are really the ones that represent the future of cybersecurity. In a way, we can say the COVID-19 is the end of what we used to call the best of breed, where you would just go to the marketplace and then you will have time to integrate that together later on. You don't have time to do that. You don't have money to do that. And the speed of your delivery of your security operation requires that you have to consider pre-integrated solutions. However, holistic does not mean monopolistic. So these platforms as well have to be opened to the ecosystem of IT and security. So this is the new trends. A holistic platform, that what we call a security fabric, like a real fabric where all the pieces are broad integrated and enable automated response. That is also something that the crisis has highlighted, the importance of automating the response.
So, Ellen, that is very interesting that the COVID has made this very clear that we need an integrated solution and not a best of breed solution. or not
Yes.
a solution with in silos. But to what extent is that possible today? And how much do we need to go? So if you take an existing organization which probably has 5, 10, or 15 vendors providing security solutions, is there
Yes.
a roadmap to achieve the integration, or does it mean a lot of replacements and a lot of upgrades,
Yes.
or maybe even a new architecture, security architecture? What
Well,
is the overall roadmap?
typically, the roadmap is in 3 steps. The
Okay.
first step is you can analyze what happens in real time and able to automate an answer, right?
Okay.
The second step is you can do that on a multi-vendor environment, which is basically in banks like the one we have
Right.
on this call. It's everybody. Everybody has got a multi-vendor infrastructure because it doesn't exist 100% belonging to a same vendor. So we have to be realistic. So then you have the ability to understand and to correlate alarms coming from different places. My edge routers is going to a peak of CPU usage, and I have a suspicious malware coming somewhere else. You have to correlate the network alarms with the security alarms. This is what we call security-driven networking, which is the merger of security and networking. And the third stage is you are able to orchestrate the response across this multiple vendor architecture. And that is the final stage of a super automation that we call orchestration. But you can only do that if you operate in an open architecture where you are equipped with the proper APIs and connectors that enable to extend the reach of your security fabric to the other vendors. And then your security is one.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
there was, and sometimes a good one is better than a mid-range two in terms of policy.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. If I may go back to Mathan. Mathan, what are the lessons you have learned? What is it that now you're wiser in 3 months compared to 3 months ago, after having gone through this 3-month intense training or battlefield experience, if I may use the word?
So I think whether COVID-19 situation or not, security was always a everyday net new learning for us. So obviously, it is just that the intensity has gone extremely high. That's how I would look at it. Possibly the pace at which we would have learned things that we would have learned over 2 years, we would have been done with a fast track program of 3 months crash course is the manner that I would want to simply put by. So,
Tell us a couple of things that you are now wiser, that you can take a faster decision or a more
absolutely.
confident decision.
Yeah. So only thing that has changed in the DNA of security professionals now, if I were to put it that way, is earlier you can keep a request pending, telling that I would want to completely ensure a risk assessment. Yeah. So you want to have a 0 or 1 crystal clear way, thoughtful, aligned to make a decision to happen through. But that
Right.
DNA got changed in many of the security professionals. Now you are under ability pressure to also to survive in business as appropriately. At the same stage, to de-risk yourself, right? So the ability for you to actively get involved as we speak right now to make involved decision, which earlier never used to be the trend in security. People can tell it's handing with security department for long enough, for year-long period also used to happen. These days, those are things that are not affordable. So yeah, that's a DNA change amongst security professionals.
I think I can call that leadership skills, right?
Absolutely. So the last mile guy, including today in the security organization, today feels the pressure to make the active, but still the right decision, right? So involved right decision is tremendous amount of pressure. I'm sure all the security function across enterprises would have faced this in the current.
Okay.
That's a tremendous learning.
That's
Earlier you could take your sweeter time. You could tell tomorrow I will respond, I will review it deeper, I will have one more person's feedback, and so on and so forth. Let me call out an external vendor to give his get his opinion from, and so on and so forth. Now all of that has to be crunched within the limited timeline that you have.
absolutely. Biju, what is your learning as a CISO from this 3 months of rigorous battlefield experience?
Yeah, I fully agree with Madan. So the most important learning is that currently we don't have any options. So the security team has to ensure that the risk management is taken care, whatever be the kind of situation they feel. So tomorrow we don't know what is going to happen or what would be the additional requirement. So the security team has to be equally prepared for that and manage the situation. Earlier
So
we
that's
had
not to tell that we would have weakened anything. Yeah.
yeah
So
yeah
don't get it otherwise. It's just that the ability to make that inclusive decision is very quicker,
exactly.
and so it's as same as crash course. That's how I would look at it. That's not to take the step to compromise and let go of. So as a gatekeeper, we are equipped enough to handle it that way. Yeah.
I like that term, inclusive decision, because it means a lot actually.
Yeah, so we don't have the
Sorry,
option.
continue, Biju.
Sure.
Earlier, we could, if we had multiple, it was like a multiple choice question. We could select the most
Okay.
appropriate one. So now the it's either yes or no. Do it, and the 99% of the cases we'll have to do it in a secure fashion. So
Okay.
that is
So
the
you have
most,
lesser choices.
yeah, lesser choices. That's the most important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now one more question, Biju, for you, and then to Mathan also the same question. What is the advice you can give to your team members, the information security team, people who are 1 or 2 or 3 levels junior to you? How would you like them to think about anything differently compared to the normal days prior to COVID?
Here also, it's the earlier it was slightly discussed that the security team, the team members cannot work in silos or just stick on to what is their assigned office order. Come do that task and go. It's not like that. It has
Okay.
to be a collaborative effort. Every day, discussion has to happen. So, what was the something special that was found today, and what actions needs to be taken? So, considering today's environment, what are the 2 or 3 or 5 extra things we have to take care also. So this the team has to interact every day, morning, evening, afternoon, and take appropriate decisions. So the be it L1 or L2 or L3, that
Hmm.
collaborative discussions are making them also capable of handling the situation on their own.
Okay.
So the
So
team,
this actually mirrors what Elaine was saying, that the IT systems cannot work in silos.
yeah,
Same with the information security people cannot work in silos. No one can say I'm a firewall guy, I'm a DMZ guy, I'm a what a DLP guy and all. They all have to work together, the
every
technologies and the peoples.
yeah,
Matan,
Yes.
what is your advice you can give? You would now give to your -1, -2, -3 level people. How would that? How should they think differently for the operation's sake and even for their own sake?
So I think want to keep their motivation levels high was always a challenge.
Really?
And it's largely socially associated. Human beings are a social animal, right? Largely social animal. We love to meet each other, like to spend time with each other, and so on and so forth. So collaboration has been the key to it. So irrespective of where they are operate, and there are occasion people have shied away. In the initial days, there are employees who used to tell me that, Matan, I can't join over the VC because my environment may not be conducive enough for me to showcase my. So I think being considerative to employees need not be apologetic for what they are attending to. Noises can be heard from home and so on and so forth. So giving them the rightful feel and feeler of that it's all fine, absolutely fine. This is the net new norms for us to operate through, and there is nothing to feel shy about. So we also practice this culture of leaders joining from home in need not essentially be suitably officially dressed always to attend a meeting. So such amount of the casual behavioral level of grooming also happened with employees. So those are very, very crucial, right? So this breaking the social stigma and to tell, irrespective where you are joining from, you are all still employees to rightfully join in the spirit to function from was crucially needed. So I think those were active steps that we took, utmost personal care to our employees to coach them, groom them during the early days. Now people don't find it offensive to attend video call without being dressed casually and so on and so forth. So it's a so that conviction that we were able to give to our employees to build their trust and credibility actually paved way for us to handle that rightfully well. Second part is to keep them knowledgeable, including in the current trend. Say when people operate from diverse environment, it's way too difficult for them to sharpen their skills. 3 months in 3 months not being connected and not being upskilling their knowledge is a tremendous gap in information security space. Yeah, because there are net new threats that will evolve through. So ensuring, especially in the information security domain, people keep their skills and knowledge level sharpened. Constant communication again, readings, learnings from near and dears, attacks that have happened in closer proximity, or things that we have seen in open conversation amongst employees as to what we see in attack trend. So keeping their and sharpening their knowledge is very, very crucial. Otherwise, 3 months is way too long enough for an information security professional to become completely dumb, right? So
To add something on
yeah. So
So
those were
I would like to use your own word and say even your team management is becoming more inclusive.
absolutely,
Inclusive
absolutely
decision making and inclusive team management.
correct. So
Whether
the
they dress, whichever way they dress.
earlier with the majority of my last mile, so 2 downs, 3 downs that we may not have reached out to in the normal work from office environment. Today we take a conscious effort to reach out to the 3 down or the 2 downs also. Uh,
Okay, that's great.
if not anything, just to showcase them, we are there to take care, bare minimum. And if there are any difficulties being touched upon, a human touch point is what largely being emphasized now.
Ellen, one question to you is now, given this sudden topsy turvy environment for security where everyone is on an accelerated learning phase, for a company like Fortinet, what does it mean in terms of your mix of products and services and consulting? I'm assuming these are the three main pillars. What does it mean for Fortinet to evolve to keep pace with the market in terms of these three pillars, or if there's a fourth pillar as well?
Oh, it means one thing. It means innovation. We are the company
Okay.
that has 3 times more patents than any other cybersecurity company. It's all about innovation, technical innovation, business innovation, and partner innovation. Let me come back on this one. Mathan says something very important about education. 3 months outside education in cybersecurity is a century. Think of you have stopped learning for a century. That's 3 months in our world. So we have decided to open all our training courses for free. We announced it.
Oh,
You go to network security experts in Fortinet, and you have 24 of the best cybersecurity courses available to you and your teams.
okay.
So that's a good news for the entire cybersecurity community. We don't want to monetize that because we believe that if our mission is to make our connected world a safer place, it goes by education. It goes by sharing the knowledge, the best practices, and the good behaviors of cybersecurity.
Fantastic. And the other part, the mix of advisory and consultancy and products, Do you see that changing for your company and for other similar companies?
Absolutely. There is no silo anymore. As I said, no silo within the products, but no silo within all the components of delivery of cybersecurity. Services, we enable a new breed of services for managed network security providers that are based on the ability to deliver remotely the entire spectrum of cybersecurity. And that requires that convergence of product, services, consulting, and the ability to approach the cybersecurity issue, as I said earlier, on a holistic manner. It's a whole thing.
Okay. The related question is this, that the worldwide the adoption of cloud and public cloud has happened very rapidly in the last couple of years. In India, in the financial sector, it's still slow, particularly public cloud, because of concerns about data loss, privacy, data privacy, things like that. But given the new kind of scenario that you described just now, where everything is integrated and holistic, do you think that's an enabler for people to, for financial organizations, to start adopting cloud at a faster pace than they've been doing, to kind of lower the barriers to cloud adoption?
Well, the big barrier to cloud adoption is you are afraid to lose control, and also you are afraid to be locked into one cloud provider. If I go with one, then you can control everything and there's no way out. That's the big fear. Hopefully, our job is not to tell whether it's good or not to go cloud. The cloud is an enormous trend. It's 260 billion of investment shifting to the cloud, right? The job is to provide the same level of security, but not only on one cloud provider, but enabling freedom of choice and freedom of coming back. You may have had a great deal with Azure in one country and a great deal with Google Cloud Platform in another country and a great deal with IBM in a third. And you should not be locked into any of these choices. And our product operates exactly the same, whether you are in your own premises or any combination of cloud with your own premises, because they are the same products. It's not we've bought some pieces and glued them together. They are the same code, the same ergonomics, the same user interface, and the same one policy that can be enforced without the cloud and in any hybrid combination of any cloud. And that is our opinion on the future. And what makes us believe we are right is the massive adoption that we saw even in Q1 2020. We saw a massive adoption of this concept. For instance, we tripled the shipment of one of our very critical component, that is SD1, in a quarter that normally was a terrible quarter for the industry. So that is the proof point of numbers that don't lie. That meaning people want that. People want this freedom of choice.
Okay. Let me come to Biju. Biju, what is your perspective on adopting cloud in this new dynamic scenario from the perspective of information security? And also, if you can comment on the perspective of management overall. What are the trust issues, risk issues, security issues that management sees? And are they very much in line with the way that information security sees? Or they tend to have some differences? And if there are differences, how does one bring that alignment? Because if these two important people think differently, then there's a problem which needs to be solved.
Yeah, actually, cloud adoption is happening. In India also it is happening, and there are applications which are getting migrated to cloud. So it's happening in the banking industry also. So one thing which slightly retards the movement to cloud is that, as we all know, banks hold large amount of customer data, and most of them are personally identifiable information. And as per the new PDP Act, also banks come under the category of significant fiduciaries. So we, as banks, need to ensure the security of the data wherever it is hosted, whether it is on-prem or on cloud.
Okay.
So people are becoming more aware of the cloud environment, the security that is available, and in what way, irrespective of the place where it is deployed, how to ensure security. Alan rightly mentioned that it is what is need to be taken care is that wherever it is deployed, we need to ensure that that kind level of security is uniform, whether it is within the bank's data center or it's on cloud. And in cloud also, we need to know what are the kind of environments that are available, whether we need to go to a community cloud or a private cloud, and the kind of security requirements we should be able to define. Then the most of the cloud service providers nowadays are able to provide the kind of requirements which we are demanding. So the first thing we for adopting a cloud infrastructure is that the institution, whether it is a bank or any other institution, needs to have a clear-cut policy on the cloud adoption. So what are the kind of security requirements that are needed when an application is hosted in a SaaS environment, or whether it is an infrastructure or a platform. So once that is developed, and we have the required approval from the top management as well as the board, then it is the duty of the security team and the technology team to ensure that the kind of security is available irrespective of the provider. So this is
Okay.
happening in Indian banks nowadays. There are large amounts of applications which are getting hosted to the cloud also.
Yes. Come on.
We
Yes.
on the amount of PAA involved in that particular application or environment, but it is happening.
Okay. Now, maybe one last question I want to take up before you come to an end. We have been more than an hour at this now. So there is this new concept of zero trust I've been reading about, which is supposed to lead to better security. So if we introduce, let's say, terms like zero trust, zero risk, zero security. I don't know whether zero security the term makes sense, but how do you see this full trust coming from zero trust, full security coming from zero risk? This sounds like a contradiction in terms. Uh, does it, in that sense, any comments on this? Is zero trust or zero risk the way to go as we migrate to the next level of business and collaboration and stuff like that?
So
Maybe Alan can start this
I would
one.
say zero trust is a beautiful concept in a bad world, because by zero trust we mean we have to dynamically allocate trust depending on the situation. So it's not trust forever. It's not I have this key and then I can enter forever everywhere in the company. So zero trust is a dynamic allocation of connectivity, access to data resources as you need and according to the profile that is automatically, dynamically learned by your network. So it's a beautiful thing that will enable to adapt security to our changing world. Now, zero trust does not mean you have to stop trusting your employees or your vendors, because it was said earlier, I think it's Bijou who said that, we are social animals. Everything is built on trust, right? So zero trust is not you don't trust people or you stop to love people. Is you fall in love every minute because you have reasons for, right? So this is how I will express it. Beautiful concept, absolutely necessary to secure our connected world, but bad connotation if you don't understand what it means.
Okay, so the terminology needs improvement,
I think so.
So let's see, maybe some.
Or people need education. When you explain what it means, then people understand the beauty of it and the security that it brings on a dynamic manner. And that is good. This is education again. You know, the CISO has to explain and educate on a daily basis.
Right. Biju, do you see any other perspective about the zero risk, zero trust, apart from what Elaine has just explained?
Yeah, practically we are in one way or other, we are implementing zero trust. For example, even if you take any incoming traffic or outgoing traffic at the perimeter level, so we are not permitting anything and everything that comes in or goes out. There is a filtering happening. So actually what we are doing is we are permitting only those essential traffic. So that is the kind of restriction we are imposing. Zero trust is also in that same line. So by default, we are not permitting connectivity. So we check whether that is required and then enable it. So typically speaking, now there are now zero trust solutions which are available, but I think for an existing institution, it will be slightly difficult to implement it overnight. So the kind of micro segmentation and all is now needed in the current environment, like earlier mentioned in one of the session. Now the perimeter is no more available, so people can connect from anywhere in the
Okay.
world. So in that aspect, we need to be aware of the fact that there can be some unwanted connections or unwanted attempts, or even some internally, even one person is given a connection. We need to check whether he has the roles or the rights to go to the particular application or particular machine. So the basically it is an extended
Okay.
version of
Okay.
the minimum privileges needed. The zero trust is it is very much needed in the current environment. So how we implement it is the question. And at the same
Okay.
time, we need to ensure that disruption is not happening, because by default we are denying the connections.
Okay. Okay. So that leads me to my final question, for which you can give me a 1 or 2 line reply. And this question is to both Elaine and Biju. Given the terminology, the vast amount of terminology in related to information security professionals will understand it. Okay, even if do they find CEOs? Do they find it confusing with all this terminology, or they want to keep away from that terminology and focus on the basics when they talk to you? So maybe Biju can start. Is terminology a constraint, or people just ignore it when you talk to the outside world?
So nowadays, everyone is aware of the information security, cyber security. That even if we consider the case of a bank, right from the IT department to the top management to the board of directors, the information security is a discussion always, and people are aware of that. And as a CISO, it is our responsibility to ensure that the people are aware of that.
Hmm.
And it is not only the top management. For a bank, it is essential, very much essential, that all our employees are aware of what is the security, because otherwise everyone, 100% of the employees are now using one system or other to connect to the bank's network.
Hmm.
So as everyone knows, no, the security is as good as the strength of the weakest links. So every employee, every customer who has a connectivity to the organization needs to be aware of the security related issues. So from a banking perspective, it is very much necessary to ensure that all our employees and all our customers are aware of the cyber security and information security related aspects.
Which is actually a
So
huge
that,
task given the number of
yeah,
people
yeah,
for a IT security
yes,
team.
yes,
Ellen, what is your
really.
take on terminology and the task of educating the non-security professionals, particularly the decision makers, about these kind of issues and how to cope with them?
I agree with Bijou here. It is the responsibility of the CISO that everyone speaks cybersecurity in the company, and not only people that are locked into the SOC that can speak security. It's a cybersecurity will become the English of IT. You don't need to be English, but you have to speak English if you want to communicate. You don't need to be an IT security expert, but you need to speak cybersecurity to be able to understand and to enable the digital innovation of your business.
So that's going to become part of day-to-day language. So that is the message I take. So that's been great. Wonderful discussion to all of you gentlemen. Anyone wants to make any very brief closing remarks? We can have that now.
I just
And
wanted
I also
to.
want to thank all the viewers for tuning in.
Yes, I'm delighted to see the energy in India in the cybersecurity domain. It's really, really refreshing to see all this knowledge. And let me send you a message. Guys, you are ahead of the game in cybersecurity. You are amongst the best cybersecurity experts. So continue like that, and it will be our mission to help you in your day-to-day challenges.
Oh, wonderful. Biju, any last comments?
So it's really a challenging period. We have to be awake 24/7. And one most important thing what we have learned during this period is that earlier when we talk about business continuity, it was the availability of the systems. It's ensuring DC and DR is up and running. We are conducting periodic tests and all. However, in this kind of pandemic, more than the availability of the systems, it is the availability of the manpower, the ability of the necessary team to connect to the infrastructure wherever they are. That is making the difference.
Yes.
And that is really the challenge now. And we are managing that.
So I'd like to thank all our participants. I'm really thankful to the financial community and the IT community for keeping the show running, which gives a huge amount of trust to the common person, people like me, who are using these kind of systems, whose day-to-day efficiency relies on ensuring that IT systems keep running and financial systems keep running. So thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this wonderful panel discussion, for enlightening us with the new trends and developments and how all this crisis has been tackled. I'm sure there's a great takeaway from all of this discussion for our people who are tuning in. We will also be posting an edited video of this on our website, Banking Frontiers of Life. So once again, thank you all. Thank you very, very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.